Artist's needle had barely lifted from my skin when I knew something was wrong, not with the work itself. The design was flawless, exactly like the water-stained photograph I'd brought in. It was Marcus, the way he was staring at my ribs. His hand had gone completely still, hovering over the fresh ink like he'd just tattooed a live grenade onto my body instead of an intricate symbol I'd found among my grandmother's things after she died. "You okay?" I asked, trying to turn my head to see his face. The position was awkward, lying on my side, arm raised, shirt bunched beneath my sports bra. My ribs burned with that familiar deep ache that comes after 3 hours under the needle, and I was ready to finally see the result. Marcus blinked. Whatever I'd caught in his expression, fear, recognition, something I couldn't quite name, vanished behind his professional mask. Yeah, just admiring the work." He set the tattoo machine down. His hands trembled, just slightly. "It came out beautifully. Let me get you wrapped up." But beautiful wasn't the word for what I saw in the mirror. The symbol was striking, almost aggressive in its elegance. Interlocking geometric patterns, something between a compass rose and a family crest. Delicate script woven through the design in a language I didn't recognize. It spread across my ribs from just beneath my breast to my hip, larger than I'd planned. And yet, it felt right, like it had always belonged there. My grandmother had never explained what it meant. And I'd never thought to ask, not before the dementia took her ability to answer. Now I'd never know. The photograph had been hidden inside her jewelry box, yellowed with age. It showed this exact symbol carved into what looked like a stone wall somewhere in Italy. On the back, in her shaky handwriting, "Our blood, our bond." I'd thought it was romantic, a connection to my heritage, to the Italian grandmother who raised me after my parents died when I was 7, a way to keep her close. Now that she was gone too, I had no idea. I had just marked myself for death. 3 days later, I was standing in a River North art gallery, trying to pretend my healing tattoo wasn't itching like crazy beneath my black silk dress. Thursday nights were supposed to be sacred. No work emails, no architectural plans, no thinking about the Chicago skyline I was helping reshape one steel beam at a time. Just me, my couch, and whatever true crime documentary could hold my attention. But my best friend Tessa had been planning this exhibition for 6 months. Skipping it would have required a better excuse than yoga pants and laziness. So here I was, wine glass in hand, studying a sculpture that looked like someone had welded together car parts in existential dread. That's when I felt it, that shift in the air, that particular kind of attention that makes your skin prickle, even when you can't see who's watching. I'd lived in Chicago long enough to trust that instinct. It had kept me safe walking home late from the office, alert in parking garages, and out of situations that turned people into statistics. Slowly I turned, scanning the crowd with practiced casualness, and my heart nearly stopped. He stood near the gallery's back wall, surrounded by 3 men in expensive suits. They held wine glasses. They studied the art, and yet they somehow still looked like security. I barely noticed them. All my attention locked onto the man at their center. Tall, 6'3" at least. Built like someone who worked with his hands, not just machines in a designer gym. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored so perfectly it looked as though it had been constructed around him. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. All sharp angles and classical proportions. Except for his eyes. God, his eyes. Even from across the gallery, they were arresting, dark, intense, and fixed on the sliver of my tattoo visible above the neckline of my dress. I should have looked away. That would have been the reasonable response. Instead, I held his gaze, caught in a silent standoff I didn't understand. Around us, the gallery kept humming. Conversations about technique and meaning, the gentle clink of wine glasses, Tessa's nervous laugh somewhere near the entrance. But all of it faded into background noise. Then the man moved. Not directly toward me. He began circling the perimeter of the room, his path casual enough that anyone watching would think he was simply browsing the exhibition. But I could feel the intention in it, the predatory grace of it. He was coming for me, and whatever happened when he arrived would change something fundamental. I knew it the way you know some things in your bones before your brain ever catches up. The same way I'd known, looking at my grandmother's photograph, that I needed that symbol on my body. Even though I couldn't explain why, Tessa suddenly appeared at my elbow. Her hand clamped onto my arm hard enough to bruise. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice tight with something between awe and terror. "Alessia, would you happen to know who that is?" "No," I said. I was surprised my voice came out steady. Should I? That's Orlando Sala. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Tessa said it, like she was invoking something dangerous, made my stomach drop. Her nails dug into my skin. We need to go, she whispered. Right now. But it was already too late. Orlando Sala closed the distance between us with fluid grace. He moved through the crowd as if it existed for one purpose only. To part for him. Up close, he was devastating. Expensive cologne mixed with something darker, and his presence seemed to take up more space than his body should have allowed. His gaze dropped to my tattoo. I watched his expression shift. The controlled mask cracked for a single heartbeat, revealing something that looked like shock. Maybe fear. Then it was gone. When he met my eyes again, his face was carefully blank. "Could we talk?" he asked. His voice was smooth, cultured, laced with the barest hint of an Italian accent that made my grandmother's language sound like something between a threat and a promise. "About your tattoo. It's not really up for discussion," I said. I poured confidence into every word, confidence I absolutely did not feel. "It's my body." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Miss," he said quietly, "I don't think you understand the situation you're in. And I don't think you understand that I'm not interested in whatever you're selling." I took a deliberate sip of my wine, willing my hand not to shake. The tattoo on my rib suddenly felt like it was burning. Probably just the healing process tangled with adrenaline and fear. Beside me, Tessa made a small sound, something between a gasp and a whimper. Her fingers were still locked around my arm like I was the only thing keeping her upright. I could feel her trembling. Orlando's attention flicked to her for a moment, then returned to me. His expression never changed, but something in his focus sharpened. "We could speak somewhere more private," he said. "This isn't a conversation for—" He gestured vaguely at the crowded gallery. "Public consumption. I'm perfectly comfortable right here." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. I wasn't comfortable at all. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to get as far from this man as possible. But I'd learned a long time ago that showing fear to predators only made them more dangerous. Better to stand your ground and hope they move on to easier prey. He studied me in silence, and I had the deeply unsettling sensation of being catalogued, analyzed, filed away in some mental database I never wanted to be part of. Then very slowly, he reached into his jacket pocket, deliberately, carefully, like he knew sudden movements might cause problems. He withdrew a business card. "When you change your mind," he said, holding it out to me. "And you will change your mind, Miss Romano," I said. "Alessia Romano." If I was going to have this deeply uncomfortable conversation, I at least wanted him to know my name. Some small, petty part of me wanted to be a person to him, not just a problem to be solved. Something flickered across his face when I said my surname. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. It vanished too quickly for me to be sure. "Miss Romano." The way he said my name was perfect. Every syllable shaped by that Italian accent that made me think of my grandmother's bedtime stories. From back when she could still remember them. "I suggest you call me within the next 24 hours, he said calmly. "The symbol you're wearing—" He paused. His jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Is not something you want to be displaying without understanding what it means. I may understand more than you think." It was a lie. I had no idea what I was talking about. But I wasn't about to let him know that. "Do you?" It wasn't a question. His eyes held mine, and I had the unsettling sense that he could see straight through my bravado, down to the confusion underneath. "Do you know which family that crest belongs to? Do you know what happens to people who wear it without permission? Do you know why 3 different organizations in this city would kill you on sight if they saw what's on your ribs?" The gallery seemed to tilt. I locked my knees to keep from swaying, refusing, absolutely refusing to show weakness. "You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to keep you alive." There was no drama in his voice, no intimidation. He said it like it was a simple fact, like telling someone their shoe was untied. "The tattoo you have is the mark of the Sala family. My family, it isn't decorative. It's a declaration of loyalty, of blood ties that go back 5 generations. And right now, every enemy we have, and we have many, is going to assume you're under our protection. Which means they will either try to kill you to send a message, or kidnap you to use as leverage." The blood drained from my face. "That's insane," I whispered. It's just a symbol I found in my grandmother's things. I didn't know. Your grandmother, he cut in sharply. His attention sharpened like a blade. What was her name? Maria Romano? Saying it out loud cracked something tender in my chest. She died 8 months ago. She never talked about her life in Italy. I thought this was... I gestured helplessly toward my ribs. Family history. Something to remember her by. Orlando went very still, the kind of stillness that reminded me of coiled springs waiting to release. Maria Romano, from Calabria, born 1947. My breath caught. How do you know that? The edge in my voice was sharp enough that a few nearby guests turned to look. Because, he said quietly, your grandmother was my grandfather's sister. The words landed between us like stones dropped into still water, sending ripples through everything I thought I knew. Which makes you family, Miss Romano, whether you knew it or not. Whether you wanted it or not. The moment you put that mark on your body, you became part of something you do not understand. The gallery spun. I heard Tessa make a small sound beside me and felt her grip on my arm shift, from restraining to supportive, like she thought I might fall. Maybe I was going to. My grandmother had a brother. She'd had family beyond me, and she'd never said a word. Never mentioned siblings. Never mentioned cousins. Never mentioned any connection to what, exactly? I forced the question out through numb lips. What is it I'm supposedly part of? Orlando's expression didn't change. The kind of business that doesn't advertise in legitimate publications, he said. The kind that requires loyalty above all else, and punishes betrayal with death. The kind your grandmother ran from 50 years ago, when she disappeared in the middle of the night and never looked back. He held out the business card again. This time I took it. My fingers brushed his, just barely, and even that brief contact sent a shock through me. Fear, or something else, I couldn't tell. 24 hours, he said. After that, I can't guarantee your safety. Certain protocols must be followed, tests to confirm whether you're truly family or an imposter trying to infiltrate our organization. His eyes locked on mine. Call me, Miss Romano, before someone else finds you first. And then he was gone, melting back into the crowd, his security trailing behind him like shadows. The space where he'd stood felt emptier than it should have, as if he'd taken all the oxygen with him when he left. I stared down at the business card in my hand. Heavy stock, expensive. Just a name, Orlando Sala, and a phone number. No title, no company. Nothing to explain what kind of business he ran. Then again, when you're in the kind of business that doesn't advertise, you don't need to explain yourself on a business card. Alessia. Tessa's voice was small, shaky. We need to leave now. We need to get you somewhere safe, and figure out what the hell just happened. I let her pull me toward the exit, my thoughts spinning too fast to form anything coherent. My grandmother had a brother. I had family I'd never known. Family involved in the kind of business that punishes betrayal with death. The implications were staggering. Impossible. Completely insane. Except they explained everything. The way my grandmother always refused to talk about Italy. The way she changed the subject whenever I asked about her childhood. The way she never kept photographs from before America. No mementos. No proof she'd ever had a life before Chicago. The way she insisted I learn Italian, but forbade me from ever speaking it outside our apartment. As if the language itself were dangerous. I'd always assumed it was trauma. The war. Poverty, any of the 1,000 reasons people fled their homes and never looked back. I never imagined. She was running from the Mafia. God, the Mafia. Was that even the right word anymore? It sounded like something out of a movie. The Godfather. The Sopranos. Not something real. Not something that could reach out and grab me in an art gallery on a Thursday night in Chicago. Tessa's car was parked 3 blocks away. She drove like someone was chasing us, blowing through 2 yellow lights, taking corners fast enough to make the tires squeal. We didn't speak until we were back at my apartment in Wicker Park, the door locked behind us, the security chain engaged, as if that could actually keep out the kind of danger Orlando had just implied. Okay. Tessa paced my tiny living room, her heels ticking sharply against the hardwood. Okay. Let's think about this rationally. Maybe he was lying. Maybe this is some kind of scam, or a case of mistaken identity, or... He knew her name, I said. I sat on the couch, still clutching the business card like it might burn me. He knew when she was born. He knew where she was from. You don't have that kind of information unless it's real. Tessa swallowed. So, your grandmother was in the Mafia. I flinched at the word. Was she, though? She ran away. She left that life behind. That has to count for something. Tessa stopped pacing and looked at me, equal parts sympathy and terror in her eyes. Alessia, you have their symbol tattooed on your ribs, a symbol that apparently says you're part of their family. Running away 50 years ago won't matter when people see that mark. She was right. I knew she was right. But the alternative, accepting that I had accidentally branded myself as part of a criminal organization, that I was now a target for violence I couldn't even imagine, was too much to process. I need to research this. I stood and crossed to my laptop on the kitchen counter. Orlando Sala, the Sala family. There has to be something out there. News articles, court records, something. The internet went dark the instant I typed his name into the search bar. Not metaphorically dark. Actually dark. My screen went black, and then lit up with a single message in red text. Search terminated. This query has been flagged. For your safety, cease investigation. What the hell? Tessa was suddenly at my shoulder, staring at the screen. Did you just get hacked? Is that even possible that fast? I grabbed my phone and tried again. Same search, same result. The moment I hit enter, the screen went black and the same warning appeared. Someone was watching. Someone had my devices monitored. Someone had set alerts for specific searches and could shut down my access to information in real time. The level of surveillance was terrifying. How long had they been watching me? Since the gallery? Since the tattoo? Since my grandmother died? My phone buzzed in my hand. I jumped. Unknown number. I almost let it ring out, but something in my chest tightened and I swiped to accept. Miss Romano. Orlando's voice was smooth, calm, like he'd expected me to try exactly what I just had. I appreciate curiosity, Orlando said, but I strongly suggest you don't investigate my family through conventional channels. You'll only draw more attention to yourself, and not the kind you want. Are you monitoring my internet? I asked. My voice came out sharper than I meant it to, anger slicing through the fear. How is that even legal? Legal is a flexible concept, he replied smoothly. What matters is keeping you alive long enough to verify your bloodline. Have you considered my offer to talk? I looked at Tessa, watching me with wide, frightened eyes. Looked at the dark screen of my laptop. Looked at the business card still clenched in my other hand. 24 hours, he'd said. But people who could monitor my internet in real time, who could shut down searches instantly, who wielded the kind of power Orlando had just demonstrated, those people didn't operate on anyone's timeline but their own. If I'm really family, I said slowly, then why do I need to be tested? Why not just accept that I'm your grandfather's niece and move on? There was weight in his pause before he answered. Because in our world, family doesn't mean trust. It means obligation, responsibility, potential liability, then quieter, but sharper. And because the last time someone claimed to be a long-lost member of the Sala family, they were an FBI agent who nearly destroyed us from the inside. Please forgive me if I require proof before I put my entire organization at risk. The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every sound in my apartment became a threat. Footsteps in the hallway, car doors slamming on the street below, the creak of pipes settling in the walls. Tessa wanted to stay, but I sent her home around midnight. No point in both of us being targets. If Orlando was right about what that tattoo meant. If, I clung to that word, trying to keep some shred of skepticism alive, but the internet blackout had been absolute. The things he'd known about my grandmother had been real. And the cold certainty in his voice when he talked about enemies who would kill me on sight, that had felt terrifyingly real too. By dawn, I'd made my decision. Not because I trusted Orlando Sala, but because the alternative was sitting still and waiting to find out if he was telling the truth about the danger. My architecture firm could survive a few days without me. I'd built enough goodwill, completed enough projects. Taking sudden personal time wouldn't destroy my career. Staying alive felt more important than my reputation. I called the number on his card at 7 a.m. Before I could talk myself out of it, he answered on the first ring. Miss Romano, I thought you'd take the full 24 hours. I don't like being monitored, I said. Or threatened. Or told my existence is going to get me killed. I took a breath. So let's get this over with. What do I need to do to prove I'm family? There was a pause on the line, a brief silence where I could almost hear him recalculating. Direct, he said at last. I appreciate that. A car will pick you up in 30 minutes. Bring identification, any documents related to your grandmother, and anything else you believe might help establish your bloodline. Where are we going? Somewhere secure. Somewhere we can speak without worrying about surveillance or interruption. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting until you're in the car. His tone shifted slightly, warmer, almost reassuring. I didn't trust it. Miss Romano, he added. If I wanted to harm you, I could have done so at the gallery. I could do it right now. You're alone in your apartment, 3rd floor, corner unit facing the park. You're wearing an oversized Northwestern sweatshirt and drinking coffee that's already gone cold. I looked down at my sweatshirt, then at the mug in my hand. The coffee was cold. My skin crawled with the realization that he could somehow see me, or that someone else was, reporting my every movement. 30 minutes, he repeated. Don't be late. The Sala family values punctuality. The line went dead for the second time in 8 hours. I spent 25 of those 30 minutes gathering everything I could find that connected me to my grandmother. Her death certificate, the deed to her small house in Jefferson Park, a box of old letters written in Italian that I'd never fully translated, the photograph that had inspired my tattoo, my own birth certificate, listing my mother as Maria's daughter, and my grandfather as nothing at all. Just a blank space where his name should have been. I'd always assumed he was a brief affair, a mistake my grandmother didn't want to talk about. Now I wondered if there had been a darker reason for his absence from every official record. The car that arrived was exactly what I'd expected. A black sedan, tinted windows, a driver who didn't make eye contact as he opened the rear door. I hesitated on the curb, my messenger bag heavy with documents, my last chance to change my mind pressing against my chest like a physical weight. But what choice did I really have? If Orlando was telling the truth, staying away wouldn't make me safer. It would only mean facing whatever came next alone, and unprepared. I got in the car. We drove north, out of my neighborhood, and into parts of the city I barely knew. The driver didn't say a word. Classical music drifted softly through the speakers. Something Italian. Possibly opera. I tried to track our route, memorize turns, store landmarks in case I needed to find my way back. After 30 minutes of spiraling merges and unfamiliar streets, I'd lost all sense of direction. When the car finally slowed, we were in Evanston. We pulled into the circular drive of a massive estate, one that looked like it had been lifted straight out of Tuscany and dropped onto the edge of Lake Michigan. Stone walls, terracotta roof tiles, manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. The kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself, because it was too busy being generationally entrenched. The driver opened my door. Mr. Sala is waiting in the library. Of course there was a library, probably filled with first editions and furniture older than my grandmother. I followed him through an entrance hall that could have swallowed my entire apartment, up a curved staircase with an iron railing that looked hand-forged by artists, down a corridor lined with paintings that were almost certainly originals. Everything about the house whispered the same things. Old money, old power, old secrets. The library was exactly as pretentious as I'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, dark leather furniture, and a massive desk positioned near windows that overlooked the lake. Orlando stood when I entered, and once again I felt the full weight of his presence. In the gallery, surrounded by people and art, he'd been imposing. Here, in what was clearly his territory, he was something else entirely. Dangerous, magnetic, the kind of man your instincts warned you to run from, even as something deeper insisted you stay. Miss Romano, he said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. Thank you for coming. I know this situation is far from ideal. That's one way to put it. I set my messenger bag on the chair but didn't sit. I brought everything I could find about my grandmother. Do you know how this works? Do you need a blood sample? A DNA test? What exactly proves I'm family? His expression shifted into something I couldn't quite decipher. Eventually, yes. DNA will be part of the verification process, but first, I'd like to know what you know about your family history. He paused. About Maria Romano. and why she left Italy. I told you last night. She never talked about it. I finally sat, exhaustion from the sleepless night crashing into me. All I know is this. She came to America in 1973, settled in Chicago, married a man named Vincent Romano. He died before I was born. She raised my mother alone. When my parents died in a car accident, she raised me too. I swallowed. That's it, that's the entire story. And no mention of siblings? He asked. Other family members? None. I reached into my bag and pulled out the photograph that had inspired my tattoo. Just this. I found it after she died, hidden in her jewelry box. On the back she wrote, "Our blood, our bond," in Italian. I thought it was just sentimental. Some connection to a heritage she never shared with me. Orlando took the photograph with careful hands. He studied it with an intensity that made my stomach tighten. His jaw tensed. His fingers traced the edge of the paper as if it might disintegrate under too much pressure. "This was taken at the family estate in Calabria," he said quietly. 1972, 6 months before Maria disappeared. He lifted his gaze to mine, and something in his dark eyes had softened. Just a fraction. "My grandfather searched for her for 20 years, Orlando said. He believed she was dead, murdered by rivals, or lost to some tragedy he couldn't prevent. It destroyed him. He died still believing he'd failed to protect his only sister." The grief in his voice caught me off guard. It was real, and it slipped past my defenses in a way his threats never had. "She never meant to hurt anyone," I said before I could stop myself. Whatever her reasons for leaving, she spent 50 years looking over her shoulder. She taught me to be careful, to trust my instincts, to always have an exit strategy. I swallowed. I thought she was just paranoid from growing up poor. Now I understand she was terrified. "Of what?" Orlando asked quietly. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his desk. "What was she afraid of, Miss Romano?" "I don't know. But she had nightmares. I'd hear her screaming in Italian, words I didn't understand. And she checked the locks on our doors 3 times every night, like she expected someone to break in." My voice softened. She never relaxed, never let her guard down. Even when the dementia took most of her memories, the fear remained. Something flickered across his face. Understanding, or recognition of something he'd long suspected. "There was an incident," he said carefully. "In 1972, a year before Maria disappeared. Our family was at war with the Marchetti organization over territory and business interests." His voice darkened. "It became brutal. People died on both sides, including civilians who were never meant to be involved. Maria witnessed something she was never meant to see, something that traumatized her so deeply she stopped speaking for 3 months. My stomach tightened. What did she see? Orlando stood and crossed to the windows overlooking the lake. "My grandfather ordered the execution of 5 Marchetti associates who'd been skimming profits. He was making an example, showing that betrayal would not be tolerated. It was business, necessary in his view." He turned back to me. "But Maria was 25, sheltered, despite being part of our world. She'd never seen that level of violence." His jaw tightened. "She walked in on the aftermath. 5 bodies, blood everywhere. My grandfather giving orders about disposal." He paused. "She ran, disappeared into the night with nothing but the clothes on her back. My grandfather's men searched everywhere, but it was as if she vanished from the earth. We assumed the Marchettis found her first, killed her in retaliation." My chest felt tight. "But she got to America instead. Somehow," he said. "Which means she had help. Resources we didn't know about. People protecting her that we never identified." His gaze sharpened on me. "Did she ever mention anyone from that time? Do you know who might have helped her escape?" I shook my head. She barely had friends in Chicago. A few women from church. Some neighbors who checked on her now and then. She kept everyone at arm's length. Orlando gave a faint, knowing exhale. "Smart. If you don't let people close, they can't betray you." And when he said it, his voice carried the unmistakable weight of personal experience. "My grandfather searched for her for 20 years, Orlando said. He believed she was dead, murdered by rivals, or lost to some tragedy he couldn't prevent. It destroyed him. He died still believing he'd failed to protect his only sister. The grief in his voice was unexpected. Real. It cut through my defenses in a way his threats and warnings never had. She never meant to hurt anyone, I said before I could stop myself. Whatever her reasons for leaving, she spent 50 years looking over her shoulder. She taught me to be careful, to trust my instincts, to always have an exit strategy. I swallowed. I thought she was just paranoid from growing up in poverty. Now I understand she was terrified. Of what? Orlando asked. He leaned forward, elbows on his desk. What was she afraid of, Miss Romano? I don't know. But she had nightmares. I'd hear her screaming in Italian, words I didn't understand. And she checked the locks on our doors 3 times every night, like she expected someone to break in. My voice dropped. She never relaxed, never let her guard down. Even when the dementia took most of her memories, the fear remained. Something flickered across his face. Understanding, or recognition of something he'd long suspected. There was an incident, he said carefully. In 1972, a year before Maria disappeared. Our family was at war with the Marchetti organization over territory and business interests. His voice darkened. It became brutal. People died on both sides, including civilians who were never meant to be involved. Maria witnessed something she was never meant to see. Something that traumatized her so deeply she stopped speaking for 3 months. My chest tightened. What did she see? Orlando stood and walked to the windows overlooking the lake. My grandfather ordered the execution of 5 Marchetti associates who'd been skimming profits. He was making an example, showing that betrayal would not be tolerated. It was business, necessary in his view. He turned back to me. But Maria was 25, sheltered, despite being part of our world. She had never seen that level of violence before. His jaw set. She walked in on the aftermath. 5 bodies, blood everywhere. My grandfather giving orders about disposal. A pause. She ran. Disappeared into the night with nothing but the clothes on her back. My grandfather's men searched everywhere, but it was as if she vanished from the earth. We assumed the Marchettis found her first. Killed her in retaliation. My breath caught. But she got to America instead. Somehow, he said. Which means she had help. Resources we didn't know about. People protecting her that we never identified. His gaze sharpened on me. Did she ever mention anyone from that time? Do you know who might have helped her escape? I shook my head. She barely had friends in Chicago. Just a few women from church. Neighbors who checked on her occasionally. She kept everyone at arm's length. Orlando exhaled quietly. Smart. If you don't let people close, they can't betray you. And the weight in his voice said he knew that from experience. It's a lesson our family learns young, Orlando said. That sounds like a terrible way to live. It's the only way to survive in our world. He moved back to his desk and pulled out a leather folder. Which brings us to your current situation. The tattoo you're wearing isn't just a family symbol. It's a mark of initiation. Everyone who bears it has sworn an oath of loyalty to the Sala family. They've proven themselves through years of service, demonstrated their trustworthiness, and earned the right to carry that mark. I didn't know that when I got it. Which is precisely the problem, he said, his tone hardening. Our enemies won't care about your ignorance. They'll see the mark and make assumptions. The Marchetti family, in particular, will assume you're under our protection. They'll target you to send a message, to extract information, or simply because killing a Sala benefits their reputation. Then I'll remove it. I gestured at my ribs. Laser removal, a cover-up tattoo, whatever it takes. If the mark is the problem, I'll get rid of it. It's too late for that. My stomach dropped. Word is already out. You were seen at the gallery by at least 3 people with connections to rival organizations. Photographs were taken. Your identity was researched. He met my gaze. As of this morning, there's a price on your head. $50,000 to anyone who brings you in alive. Double that if they extract information about our operations first. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the leather chair to steady myself. That's insane. I don't know anything about your operations. I'm an architect. I design buildings. I'm not— You're a Sala, he interrupted. That's all that matters. He opened the folder and slid a document across the desk toward me. Which means you have two choices. His finger tapped the page once. Option 1. You accept protection from my family. You relocate to a secure location. You submit to DNA testing. And if the results confirm your bloodline, you are formally brought into the organization. And option 2? My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Option 2 is you refuse our protection and attempt to survive on your own. His eyes locked onto mine, cold, unblinking. I give you 72 hours before someone finds you. A week, if you're brilliant and fortunate. But eventually they will find you. And what happens then will not be quick. Or painless. The document on the desk was a blur of dense legal language. My heart thudded too loud in my ears to process it. You want me to sign away my freedom, I said, because I made the mistake of honoring my grandmother's memory. I want you to stay alive. There was something in his voice then, something that sounded almost like sincerity. Look, he said quietly. I understand this isn't fair. You didn't choose this life. But your grandmother's blood runs through your veins. And in our world, blood means everything. If you are family, and I believe you are, then you deserve our protection. A pause. It comes with obligations, yes. But it also comes with resources and safety you cannot achieve on your own. I stared at the contract. What kind of obligations? That depends on your skills, and how you choose to contribute, Orlando said. Some family members manage legitimate business operations. Others work in more specialized capacities. You're an architect, which means you could be valuable in property development, construction oversight, or— He paused deliberately. Designing spaces that require particular security features. You mean money laundering and safe houses? I mean ensuring our business interests are adequately safeguarded. His tone suggested that distinction mattered to him. Even if the reality was exactly what I'd said. I looked back down at the contract, trying to make sense of the dense legal language through my exhaustion and rising fear. What happens if the DNA test proves I'm not family? I asked. Do I still get protection? His answer came without hesitation. If you're not blood, you become a liability. Someone who knows too much about our organization without the bonds of family to ensure loyalty. His bluntness was almost refreshing. I suggest you hope the DNA confirms your grandmother's relationship to my grandfather. My chest tightened. And if I refuse to sign this? If I walk out of here right now? Then you're on your own, and I can't help you when the Marchettis come. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those dark eyes that seemed to see far too much. But before you decide, he added quietly, there's something else you should know. Your grandmother didn't just witness that execution in 1972. My pulse stuttered. She was the reason it happened. What are you talking about? The Marchetti associates who were killed weren't just skimming profits. They were planning to kidnap Maria, use her as leverage against my grandfather, force him to surrender territory, or watch his sister die. My stomach turned. One of our informants uncovered the plot and reported it. My grandfather responded by eliminating the threat before it could materialize. So, I whispered, he killed 5 people to protect her. He killed 5 people who were planning to torture and murder a 25-year-old woman whose only crime was being born into our family. Orlando's voice hardened. Make no mistake, Miss Romano. Those men were not innocents. They knew exactly what they intended to do. Your grandmother's only mistake was not understanding that protection in our world comes at a cost. Violence answered with violence. Threats eliminated permanently. I gestured at the contract with shaking fingers. Is that supposed to make me feel better about signing this? It's supposed to help you understand the reality of your situation, he said calmly. You can judge my family's methods all you like. You can condemn the violence, the moral compromises. But the fact remains, without that violence, your grandmother would have died in 1972. You wouldn't exist. And right now, without similar protection, You won't survive the week. He was right, and I hated him for it. Hated that his logic was sound. Hated that my options had narrowed to a single choice. Sign the contract, or die. Become part of something I'd never wanted. Or watch my life end because of a tattoo I'd gotten to honor a woman who'd spent 50 years running from this exact fate. I need time to think. You have 10 minutes. Orlando stood and walked toward the door. I'll have coffee brought up. And Miss Romano... His hand paused on the doorknob. I know you don't trust me. I know this situation feels like coercion, and in many ways it is. But understand this. Bringing you into the family is a risk for me as well. If you're not who you claim to be, if this is some elaborate setup, I'm putting my entire organization in danger. The fact that I'm offering protection at all should tell you something about how seriously I take blood ties. Then he was gone, and I was left alone in the library with a contract that would change my life forever. I read it once, then again, then a third time, searching for loopholes, escape clauses, anything. The language was ironclad. I would submit to DNA testing. I would accept the family's protection and guidance. I would not share information about family business with outsiders. I would contribute my skills and expertise to family interests, and I would be bound by family law, a law that superseded conventional legal and moral frameworks. In exchange, I would receive financial support, security, and the backing of an organization powerful enough to make rival families think twice about targeting me. The coffee arrived via a silent woman in her 50s. She set down a silver tray and left without meeting my eyes. I poured a cup with shaking hands, trying to think through my options rationally, but there was no rational path forward. Every choice led somewhere dark. Sign the contract, and become complicit in whatever crimes the Sala family committed. Refuse, and likely be dead before the month was out. Run, and spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder the way my grandmother had. Never safe, never settled, never free. At least if I signed, I would be alive. And alive meant possibilities. Alive meant maybe, one day, finding a way out that didn't end with my body in the Chicago River. Orlando returned exactly 10 minutes later, as if guided by an internal clock. His face was carefully neutral, but I caught something in his eyes. Anticipation, or calculation. I'll sign. The words felt like stepping off a cliff. But I have conditions. His eyebrow lifted a fraction. You're not exactly in a position to negotiate. You want me to be part of this family? I said. Then treat me like family, not like an asset you're acquiring. I kept my voice steady, drawing on every ounce of confidence I'd ever used presenting architectural proposals to skeptical clients. I want full access to information about my grandmother. Everything you know about her life here. Why she really ran. What she was afraid of. I want the truth, not sanitized versions designed to make your family look noble. Orlando studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Done. What else? I don't become a criminal, I said. I'm an architect. That's what I'm good at. That's what I've built my career on. I'll design whatever properties you need. I'll handle legitimate development. I'll consult on security features. But I don't launder money. I don't help with murders or kidnappings or whatever else your people do. I held his gaze. And I keep my own practice, my own clients, outside the family. Some of those clients may pose security risks. Then you vet them, I said. But I'm not giving up my entire professional identity. If I'm going to survive in your world, I need something of my own. Something that isn't controlled by family obligation. He studied me in silence, dark eyes searching my face as if trying to read past my words. At last he nodded. Fine. I understand that specific clients may be deemed incompatible with family security. Anything else? I want to know what happened to the Marchetti family. Are they still around? Still a threat? They are the primary threat, he said. We've been at war on and off for 50 years. There's a truce now, but it's fragile. Built on mutual exhaustion more than peace. They would love nothing more than to learn that Maria's daughter is alive and vulnerable. Then I want training, I said. Self-defense, weapons. Whatever I need to not be helpless if something goes wrong. You can't expect me to trust that your security will always be there. Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe. Smart. I'll have it arranged. Marco handles our security training. Former Special Forces. If anyone can teach you how to survive, it's him. I inhaled once, steadying myself. And one more thing. I met his eyes directly, refusing to flinch. I want the truth about what you get out of this. Why offer me protection at all? If I'm really such a liability, why not just eliminate the problem? I'm sure you have people who could make me disappear. The question hung between us. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer, that I'd pushed too far, that the offer itself might vanish with that single challenge. Then his expression changed. Not guarded, not calculating, human. Because my grandfather spent the last 20 years of his life broken by Maria's disappearance, he said quietly. He blamed himself for not protecting her, for creating a world so violent that she felt her only choice was to run. When he died, his last words were about her, hoping she was alive somewhere, hoping she'd found peace. He moved to the window again, turning his back to me. I was 15 when he died. I watched one of the strongest men I've ever known reduced to a shell by grief and guilt. His voice softened. So, when you walked into that gallery wearing my family's mark, looking so much like the photographs of Maria at your age that it made my chest ache, yes, I could have eliminated the problem. He paused. But instead, I could give my grandfather something he never got. He turned back to me. Closure. The knowledge that his sister survived. That she built a life, he said quietly. That her bloodline continued. The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the controlled crime boss from the gallery, or the calculating negotiator from moments ago. This was just a man carrying grief he'd never fully processed. I'm sorry, I said softly, for your loss, for all of this. Please don't worry, he replied. Could you sign the contract? I picked up the pen he'd left on the desk. My hand hovered over the signature line for one final heartbeat of hesitation. Then I thought about my grandmother, about the fear she'd lived with for 50 years, about how she'd done everything in her power to protect me from this world, and how I was about to step into it anyway. But at least now I would be stepping in with my eyes open, with protection, with resources, and with the truth about where I came from. I signed. Orlando witnessed the signature, then placed the contract into his leather folder with careful precision. Welcome to the family, Miss Romano. We'll begin DNA testing this afternoon. The results should be back within 72 hours. In the meantime, you'll stay here. This is the most secure location we have. I don't have any clothes, I said. Any of my things. Already handled. Your apartment was cleared out 2 hours ago. Everything's been brought here and checked for surveillance devices. You'll find your belongings in the West Wing, third door on the left. My stomach dropped. You cleared out my apartment before I agreed to sign? I was confident you'd make the logical choice. Besides, whether you signed or not, you couldn't return there. Too many people know where you live now. The lease will be terminated with appropriate financial compensation for early departure penalties. The casual way he dismantled my entire life was staggering. You had no right. I had every right the moment you became a target because of the mark on your ribs. His voice hardened. You need to understand something, Alessia. From this moment forward, your safety is my responsibility. That means I will make decisions you won't always like. It means your freedom will be constrained by security needs. And it means trusting that I know this world better than you do. And that my methods, however invasive, are designed to keep you alive. The West Wing was larger than my entire apartment. The room he assigned me held a king-size bed, a sitting area with a fireplace, and wide windows overlooking gardens that probably required a dozen groundskeepers to maintain. My belongings looked absurd scattered across so much luxury. My laptop sitting on an antique desk worth more than my car, my Northwestern sweatshirt draped over a chair that belonged in a museum. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the last 12 hours sink in. Yesterday morning, I'd been a normal architect with a new tattoo and a quiet life. Now I was living in a mansion, under Mafia protection, waiting on DNA results that would determine whether I was truly family, or just a liability that needed to be managed. My phone buzzed. Tessa. I'd texted her earlier to say I was fine, that I'd explain everything later. Clearly that hadn't been enough. Where are you? Her message read. I went by your apartment and everything's gone. The landlord says your lease was terminated. What the hell is happening? I started typing a reply, deleted it. How could I possibly explain this? And even if I found the words, how much was I allowed to say? The contract had been very clear about not sharing family business with outsiders, and I had no idea where the line was between keeping Tessa calm and violating my new obligations. The door opened without a knock. Orlando stepped inside, carrying a tablet. His expression was unreadable. "We need to establish communication protocols," he said. "Your phone isn't secure. Every call and text is potentially monitored by people who want to use you against us." "So what?" I said. "I just cut everyone off? Never talk to my friends again?" "You use devices we provide, encrypted, monitored by our security team to ensure no information leaks." He handed me the tablet. "This is yours. Your contacts have already been transferred. Any communication now goes through our servers first." I stared at it. That is a complete invasion of privacy. That is survival. He sat in the chair across from me, close enough that I caught the scent of his cologne, cedar and something darker. "You need to adjust your thinking, Alessia. Privacy is a luxury you can no longer afford. Every connection is a potential vulnerability. Every friend can be threatened, leveraged, or turned against you. The sooner you accept that, the safer you'll be." I looked down at the tablet in my hands. "This is insane. You can't expect me to accept being monitored every second of every day." "I expect you to stay alive," he said evenly. "Everything else is secondary. I know this is overwhelming. I know you didn't choose this life, but you're in it now, whether you like it or not. And the learning curve is steep. People who don't adapt quickly tend to die." I sighed. "Has anyone ever told you that your motivational speeches need work?" The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I'm not trying to motivate you. I'm trying to prepare you for reality. This isn't a movie where things work out because the protagonist is plucky and determined. This is a world where one mistake gets you killed, where trust is earned over years and lost in seconds, where the people smiling at you across a dinner table might already be planning your murder." "Sounds like a great family to join." This time he did smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You have a sharp tongue. That will either serve you very well or get you into trouble. Possibly both." My phone buzzed again. Tessa calling this time. I looked at Orlando. "Can I answer?" "Use the tablet," he said. "The call will be routed through our system. And be careful what you say. We're monitoring. But so might others." My thumb hovered for half a second. Then I accepted the call on the unfamiliar device. Tessa's face appeared on the screen, her expression frantic. "Oh, thank God," she breathed. "Alessia, what's going on? Your apartment is empty. You're not answering correctly. I've been losing my mind." "I'm fine," I said quickly. "I'm safe. I just had to leave fast. The situation from the gallery, it got complicated." "Complicated how? Where are you staying?" I glanced at Orlando, who was watching me closely. "Somewhere secure. I can't really explain right now, but I promise I'm okay. I just need some time to sort things out." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "This is about that man. The one from the gallery. Alessia, if you're in danger, we should call the police. We should—" "No police." The words came out sharper than I meant. "Tessa, I need you to trust me on this. I'm handling it. I'll explain everything when I can, but right now, I need you not to ask questions. Can you do that?" Her expression softened from panic to hurt. "I feel scared." "I know," I said quietly. "And I'm sorry, but please, trust me. Give me a few days to figure this out. Then we'll talk properly, I promise." She was silent for a long moment. "Okay," she said at last. "But Alessia, if you need help, if you need anything, I'm here. Always." "I know, thank you." The call ended. I set the tablet down and found Orlando still watching me. That was harder than I expected. It gets easier. The lie was evident in his tone, like he was saying what he thought I needed to hear, not what he truly believed. "How many people have you brought into this life?" I asked. "Into the family?" "You're the first in 15 years, he said. "Most of our people are born into it. They grow up knowing the rules, accepting the constraints. It's all they've ever known. He moved to the window, his posture tight. Bringing in an outsider, especially one with no preparation, no training, no understanding of how we operate, is a risk for both of us. Then why do it? He was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then softly, because some things are worth the risk. Family is worth the risk. He paused. And because I saw your face when you talked about your grandmother. The love. The grief. It reminded me that not everyone in this world is motivated by power, money, or fear. Some people are just trying to honor the dead. The DNA results came back 3 days later. I spent that time exploring the estate, meeting family members who regarded me with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity, and beginning training with Marco, who turned out to be exactly as terrifying as Orlando had warned. Former Special Forces meant he showed no mercy during hand-to-hand drills, even when I ended up bruised and gasping on the mat. "You fight like someone who's never been hit before," he said, after knocking me down for the 5th time. "That's going to get you killed. The next man who comes at you won't stop because you look scared. He'll stop when you make him stop." So I learned to hit back, to block, to strike, to use my smaller size as an advantage instead of a weakness. My ribs still ached where the tattoo was healing. My muscles screamed from exertion I wasn't used to, but I kept going. Because Marco was right, looking scared wouldn't save me. Orlando found me in the library on the 3rd evening, nursing bruises and reading through the files he'd given me about my grandmother. Photographs of Maria as a young woman, my same dark hair, my same sharp cheekbones, documents detailing her life in Calabria, her role in the family. Apparently she handled the financial records, with a head for numbers that had made her indispensable, and reports of the incident that had driven her away. The DNA results confirmed what we suspected, Orlando said without preamble. "Your family, my grandfather's niece." He paused. "Which makes this official." I looked up from a photograph of Maria standing beside a stern-looking man who must have been Orlando's grandfather. They had the same eyes. So now what? Now you're formally recognized as a member of the Sala family, with all the rights and protections that entails. He set a small velvet box on the desk beside me. "This belonged to your grandmother. My grandfather kept it after she disappeared, hoping one day to return it to her." I opened the box with trembling hands. Inside was a ring, gold, elegant, engraved with the same interlocking design as my tattoo, the same delicate script, the same mark. It was beautiful and terrifying. "She left it behind when she ran," Orlando said quietly, "along with everything that connected her to this life. My grandfather wore it on a chain around his neck until the day he died." I swallowed. "Why are you giving it to me?" "Because it's yours," he said simply. "Because you're the closest thing to Maria that still exists in this world." He hesitated, just a fraction. "And because I think she'd want you to have it. To know that despite everything, despite the fear, the running, and the 50 years of silence, she was loved. She was missed. She mattered." I slid the ring onto my right hand. It fit perfectly. The weight of it was strange, both comforting and ominous. A physical symbol of the identity I'd never asked for. "There's a formal dinner tonight," Orlando continued. "Family gathering. You'll be officially welcomed. It's tradition to recognize new members. You're expected to attend." "Expected or required?" "In our family, there isn't much difference." He studied me. "I know you're still adjusting. I know this isn't easy, but tonight is essential. It's your first appearance as an acknowledged Sala. How you present yourself will shape how others in the organization see you." "No pressure, then." The ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "Just be yourself, smart, strong, unwilling to be intimidated. That will serve you better than trying to play a role you don't yet understand." Then he left me alone to prepare. I stared at Maria's ring on my hand for a long moment, and wondered what she would think of the world I'd just stepped into. Would she be angry that I'd walked willingly into the world she'd fled? Disappointed that I hadn't kept running the way she had? Or would she understand that sometimes the only way to be free is to stop running and face what's chasing you? The dinner was held in a formal dining room that could have seated 30 people. Only 12 were present. Orlando sat at the head of the table. Various family members, whose names I was still learning, took the surrounding seats. And me, positioned at Orlando's right hand, in what was apparently a place of honor. The conversation flowed around me in a blend of Italian and English, discussions of business, territory, people I didn't know. I caught fragments that made my architect's brain spark to life. Plans for a new development in the West Loop, concerns about permits and zoning regulations, debates over which officials could be persuaded and which could not. Your input would be valuable here, Orlando said, drawing me into the discussion. Alessia is an architect. She understands the development process from the inside. All eyes turned to me. I felt the weight of their scrutiny, of their curiosity about this woman who had appeared from nowhere, claiming family ties. The West Loop project, I said, keeping my voice steady. You're talking about the old warehouse district near Ashland. The zoning there is complicated. Historical preservation requirements, environmental concerns from the former industrial use. But if you approach it correctly, emphasize community benefit, adaptive reuse instead of demolition, you can get the permits. A pause. It takes time, I added, and the right presentation. An older man across the table, Roberto, Orlando's uncle, leaned forward with interest. Have you worked on similar projects? 3 in the past 2 years, I said. Industrial conversions are my specialty. I understand the regulations, I know which city officials care about what issues, and I can design spaces that meet preservation standards while still functioning for modern use. Roberto glanced at Orlando. We could use that expertise. The West Loop project has been stalled for months because of permit issues. Then Alessia will consult on it, Orlando said decisively. As a family, her skills benefit all of us. The conversation moved on. But something had shifted. I wasn't just the lost relative anymore. I was useful. Someone with value beyond my bloodline. It should have felt like progress. Instead, it felt like being pulled deeper into a world I still wasn't sure I wanted to belong to. Better than I expected for your first family gathering. Should I be insulted by your low expectations? That smile again, more genuine this time. Call it cautious optimism. Outsiders rarely adapt this quickly. Usually they either shut down completely or try to fight everything. You're doing neither. I'm good at compartmentalizing. We stood in the hallway, and only then did I realize how close he was. Close enough that I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. The air between us felt charged, heavy with something I didn't want to acknowledge. Alessia, he said quietly. The way he said my name made my breath catch. There's something you should know. Something I should have told you earlier, but didn't, because I wasn't sure how you'd react. That sounds ominous. The Marchetti family knows you exist, he said. They've seen the DNA results. We have a mole we haven't identified yet. They know you're confirmed as Maria's daughter, and that you're under my protection. My chest tightened. There was a meeting yesterday, he continued. They're calling for your death. They say allowing Maria's bloodline to continue is an insult to the 5 men my grandfather executed. The fear I'd managed to bury for 3 days came rushing back all at once. So I'm still in danger, I said, even here. You're safer here than anywhere else, he replied. But yes, you're still in danger. You will always be in danger. That's the price of being a Sala. His hand lifted, and for a moment I thought he might touch my face. Instead, he curled his fingers into a fist and let his arm fall. I won't let them hurt you, he said. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do. You're under my protection. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why does it matter so much to you? Is it really just about your grandfather's guilt? His expression changed. Stripped of calculation, stripped of control. At first, yes, he admitted. It was about giving him the peace he never found. About honoring his love for Maria by protecting her daughter. He hesitated. But now, he searched for the words. Now it's more complicated. How? Because you're not just a responsibility anymore, he said quietly. You're not just Maria's daughter or a bloodline to protect. His gaze locked on mine. You're someone I'm starting to care about. And in my world, caring about someone is the most dangerous thing you can do. The admission hung between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to face. I should have stepped back, created distance, reminded us both that this was a professional arrangement born of necessity. But I didn't move, because something in me was responding to his words, recognizing a connection I'd been trying very hard to ignore. "Orlando," I started, but didn't know how to finish. "Get some rest," he said, his voice rough now. "Tomorrow, we start preparing you for what comes next. If the Marchettis want a war over you, they'll get one." He held my gaze. "But you need to be ready." He left before I could respond, disappearing down the hallway with that same controlled grace. I stood outside my door for a long moment, my fingers brushing the ring on my hand, trying to understand what my life had become. 3 weeks ago, I'd been normal. Now I was part of a Mafia family, living under protection, learning how to fight, and developing feelings for a man who represented everything I should have run from. Maybe my grandmother had been right to run. Maybe the wisest choice was always to flee this world and never look back. Except I wasn't running. I was staying, fighting, accepting my place in a legacy I hadn't even known existed. I finally stepped into my room and caught my reflection in the mirror. Bruises from training, Maria's ring glinting on my finger, the tattoo visible beneath the fabric of my dress. And in that moment, something settled inside me. I wasn't my grandmother. I wasn't going to live my life afraid, looking over my shoulder, running from shadows. If this was my legacy, if this dangerous, violent, complicated family was mine now, then I would face it head on. Whatever came next, I would be ready.